Okay, so picking up from here, if we want to create, let's say, a water jug, but we want to modify it out of the water glass, we can click in object mode, select your glass, Shift D to duplicate, and I want to duplicate it along the x-axis, so it saves me from moving it again later. I'll just place it here. I'm going to go back into solid mode, so it makes it easier for me to model. You notice that my center of rotation is not around the new glass, so you can simply select the new glass and numpad period. That will center my rotation back onto the new object, so make it easier for me to edit. With the new glass selected, I'm going to press tab. Actually, before I do that, I will hide everything else. So in object mode, box select, which is just dragging your left mouse button. Select all the objects and press H. H to hide, Alt H to unhide everything. There's also another way you can select the object you want to show, and only show this one is Shift H. With that decluttered, I can select my object. I'll press tab to go into edit mode, and I will start making this into a water jug. To do that, we will go into X-ray mode, and I will press CTRL R. This is called Loop Cut. You can roll your mouse wheel up or down to make more cuts, but I will just make one. Left click to confirm, and then you can slide this loop cut up and down along your mesh to decide where to cut it. I'll just leave it somewhere here. You can always adjust it afterwards on the front view, G, and then grab it along the Z-axis and move it. I'm quite happy with where it is now. I will scale this out to somewhere around here. I will also extrude the top. So with it on the front view, make sure your X-ray mode is on, okay? If not, and you try and select it, the top, you'll realize I'm only selecting what was visible to my camera view. So go back to the front, turn X-ray mode on. You can either use edge or vertex mode, selectable up here. I will actually use face mode. With all the top selected, I will press E to extrude. It's already selected on the Z-axis, so I'll just put it somewhere over here. The water jug usually have a larger spout, so without selecting anything else, with the top still selected, I will just scale it out. Press S, and that's the general shape of the water jug. The next thing we're going to learn is bevel. I'm going to turn X-ray mode off just to make it easier to see. I'm going to bevel this edge to make it smoother, more round. To do that, I'm going to go into edge mode because I want to bevel this edge. The long way is to select one and then hold shift and continuing selecting all of them, but that's not inefficient. And this is Blender. Blender is super efficient. What I'm going to do, I'm going to left click to deselect everything. I'm going to hold Alt and select this edge. I'm going to go into I'm going to go into wireframe mode just to show you what I just did. By holding Alt and selecting an edge, it will select the edge that's all around it, that's connected to it. I don't know the exact term, but I'll do this one and then you'll see. It will select this whole edge all the way around the mesh. If I do the bottom, it will select the ring at the bottom. This is a very useful tool. It's Alt and click, and it will select the ring. And with that selected, to bevel, Control B as the shortcut. Control B. And again, sorry, let me cancel this. Careful when you scale or bevel or do anything that requires a cursor to drag the geometry to keep your cursor away from the origin. If you don't, you put it too close to the origin, it gets too sensitive. So I'll place it away from the origin, Control B, and you have a bit more control. Over here, it's similar to the loop cut. You can use your mouse wheel to determine how many bevel cuts you want to make. I think for a glass, somewhere around here is okay, because I will apply a smooth shading afterwards. With that done, that's the body of the glass. I'm going to go back to solid mode. Again, we're going to do this edge now, so that's Alt, left click, I'll select the ring, Control B to bevel, and that's pretty good. And since I duplicated this mesh from the glass, the water glass, if I go back into render preview, it's already inherited or duplicated the material as well. So if I go back out of object mode and I'll turn back on the sun and the plane, and there we go. This is the water jug. But you'll notice I did not scale the inside of the glass or the inside of the water jug. I did that on purpose because I want to show you something. So I'll hide the plane and the sun again, go back into solid mode. Select my water jug. I'll press Tab to go into edit mode. So this is the inside I need to scale out. Sometimes when you're editing a mesh and you want to access the inside, there's a way to there's a way to hide certain faces. And this is another shortcut I want to show you. Let's say I want to hide all these faces. The long way, of course, is selecting one by one. The short way, select a face, hold Control, and select the face you want to go to, and it will select the shortest distance. Sometimes it'll do what it wants, sometimes it'll do what you want. But if it doesn't do it, that's fine. You just go a shorter distance, and it'll figure it out. So you select these faces, or of course you can use a box select, but sometimes the geometry is not as simple. So you do that. Remember that shortcut, the click one and then hold Control and it will find the shortest distance to it. It will come in very handy later on when you're doing other modeling. Okay, so I'm going to use the box select. Once you selected these faces, you press H for hide. This is only applicable when you're in edit mode, when you start hiding inside edit mode, because once you press Tab to go out back into object mode, everything reveals again. It's only during the edit mode. So when I go back into edit mode, it's hidden. Of course, Alt-H would be to unhide all, but I want to work on the inside. So over here on the inside of the jug, same thing. We're going to do a loop cut. That is Control R. Control R. And make sure your cursor is selecting the right mesh or the right area of the mesh. If you don't, it will start cutting elsewhere. So make sure your cursor is aimed at where you want to cut. Right here is good. I'll drag it slowly, slightly lower. I want to make sure it's aligned. So I'm going to turn on X-ray mode. I'm going to go to the front view. And I'm just going to G, grab along the Z, and I'll just put it where my other one was. Like that. And I'll just press S for scale. And I'll scale it out like that. And then I'll bevel, Control B. Something like that. The glass may be a bit too thick. So without doing anything else, I am going to just scale this out and make the glass slightly thinner. And just for demonstration purpose, I'll do this one as well. Scale out, and maybe I'll move it down. And scale it back just so it's a bit more parallel. And like that, I will turn off X-ray. I will unhide all the faces. And this is pretty much it. Out of edit mode, back into object mode, Alt-H to unhide everything. Go back into render preview. And it is not bad. I could have made this boat thinner, but you get the point.